So you got yourself a 36M. Excellent choice. We're going to go over the feature set, how to take advantage of the modularity of this, and just kind of overall how it goes together, how it works. So let's take a look. Get your box just like this. We'll crack that open, and you will find a beautiful silencer, a couple of tools, and if you pull out the foam inserts, at the very bottom you will have your owner's manual and a pouch. Straight out of the box, it's going to be in its long configuration. Everything's ready to go if you want to run the quick attach mount, the ASR mount that it comes with. We'll throw that on a rifle and see how that goes. So this is a 300 blackout, and it's already equipped with a ASR single port brake. You can use a single port, the full brake, flash hider, etc. You're ready to go. You could go shoot that quick straight out of the box, assuming you're at a place where you can go shoot. Now, with a short 300 blackout like this, it's going to sound really good in its long configuration, obviously, but if you're one of those guys that wants it to be a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter, and you don't mind it getting a little bit louder, that's a huge benefit of this silencer, is you can actually cut it down to its short configuration. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to reuse the same front cap. So we're going to remove our front cap. I'll just use the 3-pin tool it comes with, which is the same 3-pin pattern as our Saker tools, our 3-lug tools. And additionally, we now have these straight slots in here that are there to kind of facilitate you being able to use improvised tools in the field if you need to. So I mean, I could use the back of the spanner, I could potentially use a quarter, the back of a knife, pretty much whatever you can fit in those slots you can use to take your front cap off or snug it down. So I'm going to remove that. Then I'm going to remove the front module. And I mean, if it's pretty snug and I can't get it off by hand, that's probably a good thing. If you need a little bit of help to break it loose, we do have tool slots on that front module. I'm going to put my spanner tool just in one of those tool slots to get a little bit more leverage, and I can break it loose. And then I'm going to set that aside somewhere where I won't lose it. This is not something you want to lose. These are also paired to the main body and precision EDM'd as a whole. So you don't want to mix and match front modules if you do have more than one of these. Now when you do install this, you just want to kind of give it a nice hand-tight snug. You don't really need to crank on it, but I'm going to, just to kind of show you a trick. If you're having a hard time getting this to break loose and you can't get it apart by hand, can't quite get enough leverage with one tool, something I do, because I over-tighten all my stuff. So I can just kind of give it a little tap to break it loose like that. All right. We're going to take the same front cap and put it right back on this main body. Get it started with my fingers, and then I'll snug it down. Again, I can use my 3-pin tool or whatever fits. I'll just use the back of the spanner tool, for example. Crank on that, tighten it down. It's ready to go in the short configuration. There you go. Keeps that a nice, small little rifle system. One thing to keep in mind when you go shorter, obviously it's a little bit lighter, it's going to be a little bit louder. This is more for the guys that just kind of want to take the edge off the sound, but you do sacrifice a little bit of sound performance. So it's really nice balance for those guys that want to keep back pressure down on a 5.56 firearm, for example. One thing you want to keep in mind is, especially on an SBR like a 5.56 AR, you do get a lot of unspent powder most of the time. So if you're shooting green tip, especially on an SBR, you're going to have a lot of flash, a lot of kaboom coming out the end. And that can be kind of concussive, kind of obnoxious. If you're shooting with night vision, that's obviously a big problem. We do offer flash hider end caps. We offer these in 30 cal and 5.56, and these make a huge difference, especially on SBRs and running in the short configuration. These drastically cut down the amount of flash that's coming out of your muzzle. We also offer standoff front caps. These are also offered in 30 cal and 5.56. These are more your tactical purpose front caps. We do offer different end caps with various bore sizes. It will ship with a 9mm one, so that'll work on everything this is rated for, 9mm, 30 cal, 300 Win Mag, 338 Lapua, 5.56, everything. But if you do want to squeeze a couple more decibels of performance out of it, if you are shooting a smaller diameter projectile, you can step down and buy a smaller end cap. Going from a 9mm to a 5.56, you will actually get a pretty substantial improvement. I mean, we're talking maybe 5 or 6 decibels at the most, depending on your setup, which is right about where you'll notice it. So whether that's worth it or not is up to you. But if you are trying to squeeze out every last bit of decibel reduction, it might be something you want to look at. Switching out end caps is pretty straightforward, regardless if you're just doing a different bore size. I could go down to this 5.56 one, thread that on, tighten it down, and be ready to go. With the standoff and flash hider end caps, obviously they have a little bit of a different geometry that's a little more keen to just using improvised tools to crank down. I could use a screwdriver. Whatever works, really. Now, if I want to put this on a precision rifle, whether that's for hunting or PRS matches or just long-range plinking, whatever you're into, I might not care so much about the length, so I'm going to throw that front module back on. Put my end cap back on, put this back in its full-length configuration. If I want to run a direct thread mount on this, I need to remove the mount from the silencer body. There are tool slots there for your spanner tools to help you do that. If you don't want to scratch up your finish, you can lay down a rag or something like that on your table, and then you're going to take your tools, grab those tool slots, and you can just kind of lean on it to pop it loose, and then take it off by hand. And with the Charlie mounting interface, you do have a very large taper inside to give you a lot of friction to keep your mounts from basically coming loose when you try to take them off a quick attach mount. So sometimes that taper will get wedged in there pretty good. You can take a spanner tool and kind of just like knock it from the inside to break it loose, like that, if it is stuck. Another thing you can do is in that little gap there between the tapered insert and the threads, you can take a knife blade or a screwdriver or something and gently put it in that slot and twist, and that'll help you pry it out as well. Now, going direct thread, you're going to have your direct thread insert, which is tapered. And that large taper basically gives it a ton of static friction holding it fixed to the silencer body. So as long as you tighten it down, that basically can't unthread off the silencer body and leave the mount on the gun like some other mounting interfaces. So you're going to drop in your direct thread insert, and then you have your coupler ring, and that threads over the top. And threading that down basically just tightens on that tapered insert, wedging it into the taper of the silencer body itself, which is absolutely excellent for a return to zero and keeping everything tight and precise. So I can snug that down. If I want to be sure it's not going to come loose, I can tighten it down the same way I broke the ASR Mount loose, which is engaging your tool slots. Lean on it a bit, and it'll be nice and snug. That thing is not going to go anywhere. One thing you might run into, I'll mention this to you. I'm going to actually break this mount loose just to kind of show you. So if you don't tighten it down very good, if I just tried to tighten this by hand and put it on my rifle, I can actually have my mount spin when I try to take it off or tighten it down. And I intentionally didn't tighten it up very good. So this is actually spinning around on the mount. And if I try to unthread it, again, it's spinning around on the mount. That happens if you didn't basically tighten your mount to the silencer body very well. That tapered wedge has a huge amount of static friction to keep that from happening when it's actually properly tightened. But you know, if you didn't tighten it enough and you do have that happen, easy fix. Just grab those tool slots while it's on the rifle. You can kind of pinch it with your hand to snug it down, and then you should be able to break it free. And next time, just tighten it down better. Next, we're going to show you how to install your Charlie piston housing. When you buy a Charlie piston housing, it's going to come with these components, like that. It's a coupler ring. It's the same coupler ring that's used for the direct thread mount, so you can mix them up if you want. That's totally fine. So to run this on a 9mm host or a pistol caliber host, we're going to take our piston housing, drop that in the back of the silencer, and then our coupler ring, the same coupler ring that's used for the direct thread mounts, just threads over that. Tighten that down good and snug, And the piston housing is the basis not only for handguns. If you want to run a piston, you need the piston housing. If you want to run a 3-lug mount, you also need the piston housing. So this is really, think of this as the basis for anything pistol caliber. To run it on a handgun, you're going to need, well, first a handgun, so let's grab one of those. Here's a Glock 19. This particular threaded barrel is one of ours. This one is 13.5 by 1 left hand. So I need the corresponding piston for that. So you'll buy the piston that fits the threads of your barrel. You're going to put the piston spring over the piston, the retainer on top of that. That will drop into the piston housing of your silencer. Snug that down, and then it's ready to go. And on a handgun, again, if you actually take this front module off and run it in the short configuration, you're about the same length and about the same performance, maybe even a little bit better, as our Omega 9K silencer, which does very well on handguns. All right, so we have a CZ Scorpion here with a 3-lug muzzle device threaded on. To run this with a 3-lug mount, we're going to need to remove our piston that we have in here from putting it on a handgun. So I unthread that retainer by hand, and I can pull out my piston with the piston spring there. I'm going to leave my piston housing and coupler ring in there. We installed that earlier, but we'll go back and make sure you know what's in there. So you've got your coupler ring and your piston housing that we use for handguns. We're going to keep that. So piston housing goes in, coupler ring right behind that, and then we'll make sure that's nice and tight. Now with our piston housing installed, the same one we use for handguns, we're going to take our standard 3-lug mount, and that just threads straight into that piston housing. We'll use our 3-pin tool to snug that down, and it's ready to go. And there we are on Scorpion. So that's how a 36M works. There's a lot of modularity, a lot of versatility. You can use various front caps of different purposes and sizes. You can change your length. You have a bunch of options for your mounting interface. We're using our Charlie interface on the Omega 36M. It's the same interface we use on our Chimera series of suppressors as well as our Sakers. So any accessories you have that are compatible with those are also compatible with the Omega 36M. The benefit of that is because all of our mounts use this tapered insert to seat inside the silencer, you have a huge amount of static friction. So when it's tightened down properly, these inserts basically bond to your silencer. So that avoids any situation where you might be trying to take your silencer off a firearm and leaving the mount behind. So that's the 36M. We know you'll enjoy it. If you have any other questions that we didn't cover, drop us a comment below or call up our customer service line and they'll be happy to answer any questions.